Right, is this last night's team sheet? That's Millwall's team sheet. Wait here. Is this last night's team sheet? Yes, it is. This is last night's team sheet. Oh, right. Hello. I should really get my stuff prepared before I go live. Just kind of wing it as we do in life. Not really sure how many people will be joining today because it's lunch on a school day. It's my day off, but some of you are working. Some of you are pretending to work. Some of you aren't doing very much at all. But let's talk about the game last night. Derby came from 2-0 down to get a point at Brentford. I had said prior to the game that I wouldn't fall out with my chair if Derby got something from the match. I didn't think they'd do it in that style, so I almost fell out of my chair. yeah, the takeover's been off for takeover that has been dead in the water for weeks is now officially dead. Like, it's been dead in the water for ages. It's been done for a while. I think if there was hope that it would go through, it was more just clinging to hope than anything tangible that it would go through. It's been done for a while, unfortunately, Ryan, mate. It's just officially official that it's done. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. The first half against Brentford, Derby were incredibly lucky not to be 4-0 down, and I don't think that's hyperbole either. Brian and Burmo had a chance just after Brentford had gone 1-0 up, where he gets goal side of Lee Buchanan far too easily for the second time in the opening 15 minutes. He gets inside him and tries to beat Kellaroos at his near post and just scuffs it wide. And then Ivan Toney has a shot blocked. That's so mean, Joe. Oh man. Oh, some might say that it was my fault for. Some might say it was actually my fault for turning up to a muddy park, sitting near a puddle in my favourite hoodie. So, shit happens. He's a kid, one of them, innit? So yeah, they were. Ivan Toney had a shot that went across the face of goal, and that was blocked, and that went out for a corner. Derby were incredibly lucky not to be 4-0 down. I think tactically they got things so very wrong. And look, the second goal, and I've tweeted this a couple of times. Like, goals in general in football, you can always look at the error or you can always look at the skill on the other side of it, because goals happen because errors appear in systems and in players. That's just how goals happen, right? So rarely do goals happen just because everything is wonderful and a team defends perfectly, and yet Andre Wisdom's tackle for on Burmo is kind of weak, okay, but the fact he's dragged out by Ivan Toney, he does not want to be there, and he's with Toney. He sees the run from Mbumu late, right? So of course the tackle is late because he sees the run so late. It's so difficult to critique. What you would question is the communication across the line. Is it meant to be Buchanan that goes? But it's just really good movement, really clever movement, and even like Keller maybe shouldn't be beating at his front post, but Cano shapes to hit that in the far corner and then drags it into the front by the near post. So even that, yeah, it's an error, but it's just a really good move. And sometimes good football players and good football teams do good football things, and that was fine. Didn't like Louis Watson on the left. Rooney had explained that they'd asked him to play on from the left to use his speed and creativity. I didn't particularly like that. I can't say I even particularly understood it, but that's how it goes. And Rooney had said post game that he didn't take Watson off because of his performance. It was simply because he had to change something, which is fine. If you were going to go with one of them on the left, I thought it would have been Jason Knight just for defensive cover purposes, because you're going to have to track, a rotation of players on that side. And Jason Knight is if nothing else on the left, a very good defensive winger. You can put him out there and be sure that he'll get through a lot of work, particularly if you've got an attacking winger in Buchanan, who's going to need some help on that side. So yeah, didn't agree with that. Kazim Richards was isolated, but even when he got on the ball, I thought he was poor. I think he looks tired right now. I think he is tired right now. Rooney said after the game that they don't know what's wrong with him. He called it a knock. Now, as someone pointed out to me on Twitter, Tom Lawrence had a knock and suddenly was out for 3 months. So let's just hold off on that. Derby's presser is what are we Wednesday? So Derby's presser ahead of the Stoke game is tomorrow. So we'll know how Colin's feeling right at that point. Failing that, it'll be Martin Whitehorn because Lee Gregory is ineligible to play against his parent club. The second half. So the second half, they bring on Lewis Sibley, they bring on Lee Gregory, and they bring on help me out. Tenan Mengi. They bring on Mengi as well, and they move to a 3-5-2 with Burnham Buchanan effectively providing the width. They pack the midfield, play Sibley at the 10, and then they have two out-and-out forwards up front. It also means with the three centre-backs at the back that Ivan Toney didn't have the freedom that he had in the first half to just drop deep, because if he drags a centre-back out, well, now you've got two to cover. You've not let Matt Clark get isolated on his own and got this big space for Janelt or Norgard to gallop into, or even Burmo or Canos on the runs from out to in. So you've suddenly got a much solid base there, and then with Sibley at the 10, suddenly with him going into the spaces where Norgard and Matthias Jensen were stationed. Suddenly, they didn't want to make those runs from the 6. They didn't want to make those runs into the space that Janelt had vacated by pushing up onto Wisdom or Clark. They didn't want to make those runs because they suddenly had to account for Sibley going the other way. In my opinion, Derby could have got that joy if they'd have put Watson centrally, but they didn't do that or didn't want to do that. Sibley came in at 10. That was the best 45 minutes that he played in quite some time. Maybe his best performance since his hat trick against Millwall, and it's been a while. It's been a while since he was so positive in his runs like that. And he beat a man early on, and I think from that point his confidence grew and he grew into the game, and suddenly things just started to click for him. The goal that he takes is absolutely brilliant. The pass for the goal by Patrick Roberts is equally good. He drifts inside, he drags two markers with him, spots a gap, and Sibley just subtly moves into the space, and Patrick Roberts finds the pass, and Sibley checks onto his left and bends it in. It's a brilliant goal. Lee Gregory was excellent when he came on. He ran the channels so well, particularly the left channel. He ran that so well. He got in a couple of times down that side. He was a real menace. And with him stationed centrally, what it meant is that Kazim Richards could kind of pull into the half space on the right, and he was winning flick-ons, which meant Byrne can then go on the overlap. Byrne's cross for the goal was absolutely brilliant. But Byrne has been, watching him develop as an attacker has been interesting, because when he came in, he was seen as and I think I've said this on a previous episode. Look at us calling this episodes now. He was defensively much more sound than Jayden Bogle, but going forward, he maybe didn't have the array of attacking skills that Bogle had. He's developed that so well over the course of the season. His crossing, he's certainly the best crosser that Derby have got in the squad by a mile. He can cross it low, he can put it in at the front post, he can float it to the far post, he can put it in with whip, he can do so many things from that side. He can take a touch and send it in, he can send it in first time. Really, really good crosser of the football. His cross for Gregory was absolutely outstanding. And obviously with three centre-backs back there, he was allowed to stay high up the pitch and not have to worry about Canos or Fosu when he came on. He didn't have to worry about that because he had the base back there. I was surprised that Thomas Frank didn't change it sooner. Frank is a very, very astute tactical coach. His teams play brilliant football. He does make very good and subtle changes, and he improves players as well. The fact that he just let Brentford be overrun, Derby completely changed shape and completely changed the way they played, and he just didn't react to it. It was almost like, come hell or high water, we'll just keep playing this way. But you have to be able to make in-game adjustments, and they did. And I don't think they did that well enough, and that helped contribute to Derby basically just dominating the game from the second half. Frank in this post-game presser had said Derby only had 2 chances and they scored. That was really sour grapes, because he's wrong. Derby had 2 chances through Lee Gregory after Lee Gregory had scored. Sibley had another chance in stoppage time where had his first touch maybe been a little bit better, he could have got in again. and maybe won the game for Derby. Jason Knight had a shot which David Raya had to deal with. There might have been a couple of others I'm missing. So it's sour grapes, and he's wrong, because he might consider Brentford lucky to actually get a point in the end. Although on the flip side of that, Derby should consider themselves incredibly lucky that they weren't dead and buried after the first 45 minutes. So, that's that. Look, win away at Stoke on Saturday, which is no gimmick because nothing is ever a gimmick in the Championship. Suddenly 4 points from those two games looks okay. Helped that Coventry lost last night, helped that Rotherham lost last night heavily as well. So for those tracking goal difference, that helps. So all of that helped. It was in the context, that was an enormous point for Derby. And credit to Rooney for changing it. It also does come with the caveat that he had to make such drastic changes. Maybe a slight admission that tactically they got some things wrong in the first half. But look, you recognise that and you change it. There's only so much criticism you can lay at that. So fair play for doing those things. Let's get to some comments. Been holding off my lunch break for this. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. What's for lunch? Hi, Ryan. So last night in the second half, wow, amazing. What can happen when we play players in their strongest position? Shinnie not getting in the Scotland squad puzzles me. Yeah, Chris, I mean, playing Sibley as a 10 worked really, really well. Giving Kazim Richards a strike partner, giving him a body that is always close by him, always helps, and having Sibley close by him as well. So you've always got two guys close by him, always really, really helps. I felt sorry for Sibley for a lot of it because he was playing on the left, on the right, and he's not a winger. He's not an inside forward. He's not a winger. He likes to have the ball on the half turn and run it at players, and he likes the freedom of having the pitch either side because when he's on the wing, he's always handcuffed by the touchline. So he can only ever go one way. So I always feel a little bit sorry for him. Look, Scotland at the minute have got quite a wealth of good young central midfielders. But I will happily stand on the table and say Graham Shinnie needs to be in that Scotland squad. I find it quite puzzling as well. And I think if he was to continue this form to the end of the season, for me, he should go to the Euros. Even if you take him as someone that Scotland are winning with 15 minutes left, and you think, right, we need proper energy in there and someone that's going to battle and make tackles. Graham Shinnie comes on. Look, every player has a role to play. But for me, he deserves on merit to go to that game. If it's a case of he's playing in the second tier of English football, that to me is nonsense. We've had a lot of that with England as well. So yeah. Do you think I will play for us again, Ryan? I don't think he'll play this season. I don't think he'll play again this season. Obviously, only got 3 minutes against was a QPR in the 1-0 defeat at Pride Park. I don't think he'll play again this season. Certainly not for the seniors. I think we'll have to wait and see what happens with him in going into next season. Look, if he can get a good pre-season under his belt, and it's all ifs. It is all ifs, and so far it hasn't worked out. But you never know. But I'm leaning towards probably not, which is a shame. But we'll just have to see. Any hangover cures? Had one too many baby shams after. David, why won't you leave me alone? You're everywhere. You're on my timeline. You're on my Instagram. You're here. You're everywhere. Leave me alone. Do we get Gregory on a permanent after his loan? That's a good question. I actually think his contract is up at the end of the season. He could be someone that comes in and is quite handy. Now, the counter to that is you would then have Gregory at 32, 33, Kazim Richards that'll be turning 35. Martin Wycombe, we're not sure. So you'd need a striker more long term and for the future. This Derby squad is already young, but it's young in a lot of other areas. It's not young up front, and we haven't seen Bobby Duncan in a good while. Bobby Duncan's played sort of 200 odd minutes for the under 23s. Right now he's out injured. It's not really clicked for him. Similar to Ives, it's not really clicked for him either. So sort of trying to hang your hat on Bobby Duncan coming through next season and getting all the goals is it's not really something that it's not really something I'd hang my hat on to be honest. So you'd need a younger striker to come in, I think. But for depth, yeah, sure. If Gregory wants to come back and you can give him a 2-year deal on reasonable money, or even a 1-year deal that has a trigger clause in it for next year, sure, why not? He brings a different option, and you always need options. And I think Rooney likes him, and he's a good character around the place. Really, really well liked about the place. And even Jack Marriott will come back. I imagine Jack will be on his way as well. Anyway, I think it said a lot about the stock of Marriott that Derby needed a striker in January. They knew they needed a striker, and they still let Marriott go back out on loan. I think that said a lot about where he sort of stands in there at the moment. Hate to say it, but we play better without Max Bird in the team. Slows it down too much and loses the ball in dangerous area. Yeah, Matt, it's funny, isn't it? His ball playing skills have definitely dipped. Well, but his defensive work has picked up. But right now they need him to be more creative, I think. And at the minute, I think he is struggling with that. He was sloppy on the ball last night. He was poor, but it's tough to dig Max out, particularly in that. He only played 45 minutes, but it's tough to dig Max out because they were all bad. All of them were bad from 1 to 11. They were awful. So it's really difficult to say Max was at the epicenter of that. Even Graham wasn't that great in the first 45 because the defensive line was so deep. Then they were going so deep to try and get the ball, and then there's huge gaps between them and the attacking players. But yeah, last night wasn't Max's greatest night on the ball. And again, there was not a lot of movement in front of him. They were looking for long diagonals into Colin. Watson was kind of dropping deep, searching for the ball. And there was, Juzwiak on the right, who was poor last night. He put in one good cross, Juzwiak, and that was kind of it. He had a poor night, and I've defended him recently because I think he's been better than what some people have thought he is. But he was poor last night. He didn't do that much. He didn't offer much movement. He didn't offer many runs in behind. So it's difficult. Like, you can't speed play up if people around you aren't also trying to speed play up. That is quite difficult. But that overall doesn't hide the fact that Max right now on the ball isn't playing to the level that he was, last season. So yeah, I think with Sibley in the team as the 10 and Shinnie and Knight there, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe for the rest of the season as a plan A, with a bit more. Sibley has a bit more drive. He's a different player, so has a bit more drive to get the team up the pitch very, very quickly. Jacket, Spud and Beans textbook. You got cheese on that? You got cheese on it? Who do you think deserves a new contract? I know there's a fair few out of contract in the summer. Tom, deserves is it's always a tricky one. Look, I think because it's always largely based on the season that you've just had rather than your body of work across the club as a whole. I think I'm finding it hard to convince myself that Martin Waghorn will be here next season. He's not had his greatest season. And I think also he's 31, and I also think he will want to play consistent games through the middle, as he goes into his sort of last his last sort of big contract, as it were, because you get 3 years at his next. Let's say he gets 3 years at his next contract to be 34. You probably think that's his last big deal. So, I think he might have to go and look for that elsewhere. Andre's a funny one because I think he's dependable enough, but also he's in his peak years as well. He's 26, 27. With the finances that Derby currently operate in, the question you have to ask yourself is: will you get better for not spending that much money? Will you get better than Andre Wisdom for basically free? That's the question you kind of have to ask yourself. I'm inclined to think no, but that's just my inclination. So I think they should wrap Andre up with a new deal. Who else is out of contract? Kazim Richards has got himself a new deal. Curtis Davis, coming off an Achilles injury, just turned 36. Worry slightly that that's it for him, and they'll move him on. And then next season, they have to look at next season as well. Next season, Graham Shinnie is out of contract. Tie him down immediately. Immediately get him a new deal. Fair play. I understand someone had a take last night that, you won't move forward with Graham Shinnie in the squad. He's not good enough technically on the ball. Right. Well, it's not all about being technical on the ball. Like without who else was making that tackle when Ted and Mengi chickened out of a challenge last night? Who else was making that tackle other than Graham in the 92nd, third minute? You're gonna need a guy like that in your squad. You're just gonna need a guy like that. He's a proper leader. He's a brilliant box to box player. He's better on the ball than given credit for, but his defensive qualities are brilliant, and you're gonna need that. Tie him up immediately. Will Bobby Duncan depart? Not sure. It hasn't happened for him, and I'm honestly not sure what happens with him from here. Now he's had a lot. He's not played a lot of football recently, and fitness issues and all those sorts of things. And he is now injured again. So that's another one that at the minute hasn't quite worked out. Other potential takeovers do not happen quickly. Do we have a pot to piss in as far as close season signing? Look, right now it's difficult. I think the fact that Derby had to bring in 6 loan players or 5 loan players, and Rooney had said, was it? Hang on. After the Bristol City game, January 30th. So yeah, the Bristol City game. He had said it would be a mix of permanents and loans. He had said it would be a mix of that. The fact that they didn't get a mix and it was all loans suggests to me that they don't have a lot of money, which suggests to me that if they were to get good offers for, let's say, Tom Lawrence, if they were to get a decent offer for Tom, who's one of your premier players who is worth a bit of money, they'd probably take it. If they were to get a good offer for, I don't know, Lee, or I don't know, one of the midfielders in there, they'd probably take it. Wages have been paid on time again, it seems, so that's good. But the fact that wages were not paid on time for a very long time, and the news was that it was due to BZI, or it was due to this, or it was due to that. Until the club changes hands, Mel Morris owns the football club. He is therefore responsible for paying the players. What you could do is pay the players and then go to, at the time it was BZI, go, I've had to pay the players this. This is how much it is. You owe me this much back. It wasn't a good look, and the fact that they were late 2 months in a row wasn't a good look at all for the club's finances. The club doesn't have a lot of money. I think that's fair to say. It doesn't have a lot of money. I think the fact that wages were late just a couple of months ago for 2 months running. I think the fact that there was 5 loan signings in there. I think all that attests to the fact that they don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of money. A takeover is needed. I think the fact that now Mel is aggressively trying to sell the club either says he doesn't have a lot of actual cash left. He might have a lot of assets that are worth a lot of money. He doesn't have a lot of actual cash left, or he is now just sick and tired of spending it all. His health concerns, of course, are valid. Of course, they're valid. That is a big stress of running a football club. Is going to take a toll on your health. But that shouldn't distract. His health is just one factor in it. It's not the entire factor. With the fact that he's so aggressively trying to move the club along. Any idea who the unnamed American group are? I think I do, but I think the fact that it remains unnamed is, if you could name it, you would just name it. There's a reason it stays unnamed. Have we heard how Colin is? We'll hear how Colin is tomorrow, Robert. We'll hear how Colin is tomorrow. That's when press is. Rooney said it was just a knock, so we'll see. We'll see. Percy just tweeted to say we're talking to other investors. Tom, to be honest, mate, we tweeted. The Athletic ran first that Derby were talking to other investors. David Ornstein and Matt Slater, my colleagues, first ran the news story that Eric Alonso was interested in buying the club. Myself and Matt Slater also ran the story that we knew American investment had been offered. Listen, not to dump on Perce. Like, Perce is a really good journalist, but it bothers me when people think he got that first when we got that first. We were running that first. We were doing those stories first. I'm competitive. I'm a journalist. You want to be seen as credible. So yeah, they are speaking to other people. But we broke that first. is my point. His story that Mel is annoyed and is exclusive, and now the talks have been binned off. Great. I didn't know that. But what we did know first was that they were talking to other parties. Like I said, we broke the story that Alonso was in advanced talks, and when we ran, I think myself and Slater ran. Oh man, one of many explainers over the course of this BZI takeover. But within that, we had also said that we knew that other investment had been offered, and BZI had said no to that other investment at the time. So. Last couple. Do you think Rooney is guilty of changing too much when adjusting tactics each game to the opposition? I wish he'd stick with a way of play. It's funny, actually, Matt, because do you remember sort of very early on in sort of the first half of Koku's tenure, one of the big criticisms levelled at him was he changed the system and the style too much, and he didn't let players bed into a system. That, I thought, was at the time, it was a valid criticism, and also you did have to chop and change to match up some of your opposition. Now, the same is now befalling Rooney here, where they had a very defined way of playing at first, a very set way of playing, and that was great, and it was getting results. And they would defend very doggedly, get the ball out wide quickly, get crosses in the box, and get good movement to try and get some goals, and also set pieces. At the minute, yeah, he's chopping and changing. He said that right now, that will be the philosophy going forward. That you have to match up. The Barnsley game, I actually thought was a good way to chop and change it. The pitch was grim, but also Barnsley are so direct. Rooney just tried to play them their own game, and they got a good point. They got a good point out of that. The Huddersfield game, yeah, trying to match them up. I mean, they went in 1-0 down, but he admitted he got it tactically wrong, which for me was strange. And even in this game, yeah, I think maybe he is a little bit guilty of it, but I also think this is kind of the tools he's got to work with right now, right? So this isn't his squad yet, and he's trying to just get them across the line any way he can, right? He's just trying to get them across the line any way they can, get these 9 games out of the way, do what you have to do to get results, and bin this season and start again. Then with a full preseason, he can implement an identity, right? He's trying to implement an identity while the team have got games every 3 days. And one of those days is like a rest day, a recovery day. So you basically got 2 days of training. Actually, you kind of got 1 day of training, because one then has to be centered on preparing for your opposition, watching tape and things like that. It's so difficult to try and implement an identity like that on the fly as an inexperienced manager in the situation that he walked into at Derby. So I kind of feel sorry for him, because it is going to be very, very difficult to try and move those things around a little bit. Look, next season with a full pre-season, hopefully in the Championship, I think they'll be fine. Next season with a full pre-season, I think we'll see a more established identity of what Derby are. Last one, Tom. General opinion on Roos since he's been in the team. Fine. I think he's been very good. He was at fault for the goal against Cardiff, but it was the 4th goal and they were handily beaten already. And I think it was the last kick of the game. Oh, Derby kicked off and then the ref blew his whistle. So I'm not really going to criticise Roos for letting in the 4th goal in a 4-0 hammering with the last kick of the game virtually. But other than that, he's been fine. I understand the frustration of him getting beaten at the near post for the goal last night. But also I think the fact that Canos shapes hit it far post and then hits it near, going to wrong foot a goalkeeper sometimes. But I think generally he's been good. Against Barnsley, he was excellent. Very, very commanding. Remember last season when crosses came in, we were a bit unsure. Against Barnsley, the most direct team on planet Earth, he was coming, he was catching everything, he was snatching out the air, he was demanding, caught at the right time, punched at the right time, was positioned really well, made a couple of good saves. He was good. He was very good. So yeah, I think he's been fine. I also think him staying in the team is fine as well, because Rooney has spoken about this before. If you are going to implement a rule of your place is up for grabs, competition for places across the board, that includes your goalkeeper. Now, David has been out injured, sure. He's had a couple of iffy moments. He's been out, but he's had a couple of iffy moments. Keller's come in, he's done really well. He's kept the shirt on merit. So yeah, that's fine. Right, folks, I'm going to jump half an hour today. Woo! I'm going to jump. You all enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there if you're working and whatnot. Yeah, thanks so much for you that are also, having to go out there and work as well. Thanks so much for that. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be tweeting tomorrow about the press conference, and we'll be doing this all over again Saturday. So I'll see you Saturday. Take care, everybody. Bye.